Or do you know you? I'm sure you do know what the expected move is. Actually, I don't know. What's the options activity like on FedEx? Is it active?
It's relatively active. It's not a
Okay.
not like an all week kind of trade active. It kind of
Hmm.
comes and goes. Usually a lot of activity comes on the run up of FedEx, which is pretty typical of any earnings stock. But there's also more activity into UPS's earnings, which happened a few weeks back. So
All right.
there's some sympathy play that takes place with FedEx in both the pre and post announcement of UPS earnings, since they're so similar.
Hmm.
So,
Yes, UP. Yeah,
good.
UPS. That's right. Well, I was just going to say you reminded me. Of course, UPS is their trading counterpart. Well, they're also their market counterpart, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And as far as like overall posture here, I'm kind of using that as a guide because there's a couple things that happened more recently with FedEx, along with how it moved with UPS. And in relation to today's expected move, I'm trying to see if there's any edge there. Um, the first thing to observe is about 2.5 weeks ago, there's a day on the 21st, and FedEx dropped something like 10%. So it's a pretty massive day on the session. Let's see if that's right. 8.7% from high to low. So pretty massive drop off, and that was the day that UPS reported, or the day after. Now, when you look at UPS's chart, it's a huge gap, so it's even worse. FedEx had that sympathy move and then ended up dropping a little bit lower, on the subsequent maybe couple of weeks. Ever since then, we're kind of hanging underneath that drop off, so it's not like FedEx really recovered. It seems as if this one's still kind of weak overall and not really finding good buying. Um, the technicals as well suggest that the larger channel that it was following, especially into its all-time high, which we can see was back in maybe like late 2021, all the way into the bear market of 2022. Most of that trade is over with. So it's in a weird technical spot because it's like mid-range if I'm pulling the chart back enough. And today's expected move is plus or minus 19.5. So it has room to move up, and that would probably just put it back to the bottom of the channel. It also has room to move down. In this case, it would be breaking sort of your mid-range support if it were to move down. And with what I saw on UPS, I'd be curious if it has more downside because at the low end, we've already fallen off about 10% total after UPS reported. So if we see anything similar to what UPS did, I would be looking at the lower expected move, and that would be about 225. Well, 230 and then maybe 225 for like a nice round number. Um, Options here kind of balanced. I'm not seeing any large orders anywhere. It's mostly just incremental $5 and $10 strikes. So,
Right.
yeah, not too much of a lean on that one, but I would say everything that we saw with UPS indicates more downside.
There you go. Now, I think tonight our main event is going to be Micron. So I want to make sure we get to that. We've got 14 minutes to the close. Micron should be
Sure.
more interesting, I think. But we'll see. Definitely, there's sort of more expectations around Micron, and there have been expectations around these semiconductors for goodness, like for years now, right? And we were talking about this in the last earnings, and it feels like the earnings before that. Unfortunately, if you're a semiconductor stock or most of the tech stocks, especially those semiconductors and AI, it is not good enough generally just to hit your numbers or even slightly exceed your numbers. You need to significantly exceed your numbers to get a positive push upwards, or you need some good technical news, some new development or deliver, discovery. Micron's potentially in that space where it could deliver that. Now, I think their numbers are probably going to be right on target. The expectation is about 7.9 billion of revenue with $1.44 per share. And I think they'll hit that. Their forward looking guidance is what everybody's going to be watching, of course, because that guidance is really where they want to go. And interestingly, this week has been when NVIDIA is having their GTC conference, which is happening in San Diego. At that conference, they made a number of references to in that their next GPU set, they're going to be NVIDIA. This is going to be using more high bandwidth memory, and the high bandwidth memory chip subsets come primarily from Micron. They're one of the larger producers of that, and they've got big margins on that. So these chip companies sort of do work with each other and buy different parts from each other. So it's HBM4 DRAM is, I guess, these chips that they're expecting to leverage, and that's seen as good news. Now, I didn't see any indication as to, is that just already built into their business model? Would this mean that there's an expectation of growth, like more units being ordered, greater volumes being developed? Not that I've seen, but the sort of the implication is that likely that would be based, of course, on the sale of NVIDIA's chipset in turn. So as you can see, it's a sort of a complex ecosystem, as it is in many spaces. So I think that MU, it's got every opportunity to give good news if they can hit the right notes and the analysts like it. If they sort of fail to talk about some of their growth targets and or their forecast comes out less, not as exciting as people want, then yeah, we could see MU sort of either chop or drop hard. So again, everything's on the table here for Micron, but it definitely has the opportunity for some good growth. Micron's sitting right now. We were talking about this earlier, I think, Jared, where you wanted to see a little bit of a drop so you could get the pop.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if we're looking at the overall posture of MU, we're talking at least two, maybe 3.5 full quarters stuck in this trading range. And there's the 1 to 10. So,
That's the alarm.
as far as what MU's been doing from a technical perspective, not a lot of movement. We're seeing a lot more range play down here. Um, Current prices are sitting also in the middle of the range, which makes it a little tricky. Obviously, buying a support, selling a resistance makes a lot of sense for range traders. When you're in the middle, it's almost as if you need the institutions to make a choice. And for them, I want to see them kind of move it up in order to call this really bullish or anything other than what it currently is. Um, Expected move on this one is about 9.2, so I'll just say 10, it's a nice round number. It's actually gone down a little bit now that I look at it, so it might be closer to 9. But what we noticed, and someone in the chat room actually called this out, so appreciate that. MU has approximately probably more than 100,000 call contracts sitting at 120. And if you look at the volume today, the open interest today, and then you compare it with anything else on the option chain, that stands out like a sore thumb. So even though 120 is far, it would be something to see MU actually move to it. And the only issue with that is it then has to hold it. So I'm kind of thinking on MU from a trade perspective, even though 120 is a little far from what the options are suggesting, we could get a move to 120 and then potentially we could see a spike. And that's usually when there's just so much inventory or just, a large resistance or support that was built on the option chain. Prices can't get through it. And then the market maker tends to back up and can sometimes actually completely fall apart. We've seen it a lot in like lower ranges where you'll actually move price to the highest peak, basically obliterating any sellers in that range, but then immediately turn back around. So it's a really deceptive way to generate liquidity in a market. And with what I'm seeing on the option chain, that's certainly a possibility. That's a lot of open interest. even with today's volume coming in to add to it. So I'm kind of like bullish because it's lower than 120, but I want to see what happens at 120 too. I think they're both trades we could take. So we'll see.
There you go. And there's Micron, the main course. And for our dessert course today, we have some delicious Nike for you.
Some
Uh,
shoes, some chocolate shoe.
yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, you've been there. I know you've done the chocolate chew. That's a whole story
Exactly.
for anybody that wasn't in the room at the time. Anyway, you can ask Jared about that at some point later.
Yep.
All right, so yeah, Nike, their earnings coming out at 415, expected to be 11.1. Well, 11.12 billion in revenue, earnings at about 28 cents a share. Nike's in an interesting position because they have, of course, expectations that they're going to deliver on their earnings expectations and hit that number. Of course, everybody's looking towards a number of these different sectors to see what is going to be the impact, of course, of tariffs and their global sales. Nike's, from a stock price, they've sort of been down in the dumps here for the last little while. Really, I feel like they just have not had any new products, any growth, any sort of excitement around this stock for a while, because it used to be that they had some good product offerings. But they're also one sort of like FedEx, but not as extreme, where they've had big gaps when earnings have come out. Big gaps in the stock. If you look back over the last year and a half, you can really see where this thing both gapped up and down quite significantly. So I'm this one I'm less excited about, just because um, I think that Nike's probably going to be guiding light. Sometimes Nike is also based on Foot Locker is one of their largest retailers in North America, and Foot Locker sort of gave some weak guidance earlier, and that usually has a knock-on effect to Nike. So I'm sort of feeling a negativity in the sentiment here against the stock a little bit. So it also, frankly, we're not going to be able to tell much probably after hours, because it's also a low trading stock relatively during the day, and then after hours, again, being a NYSE stock in this case, trades on the New York Stock Exchange, the volumes tend to be sort of very, very low. So I wouldn't be surprised if basically we get almost no trading. I can't say that I can recall having traded this after hours. So maybe the volume is going to be higher than I expected, but I think it's going to be a very light dessert course if you're trying to tackle Nike. Jared, what do you think about the shoe?
You're, you're absolutely right. I think I'll just stick with the main course and I won't leave room for dessert today. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, technicals are pretty clear. We're pretty much skirting like 52-week lows and even 5-year lows if you really zoom out. So Nike's been having kind of a rough time getting off the ground. The trading range here is pretty clear. I've marked like a high and a low of interest. It also is where the volume high and low, or the value area high and low are. The expected move is about 5.6. So not a ton of movement. It's a $71 stock. So that's about 8%. We're seeing pretty much 7 or 8% on anything that's not tech. So that's about in line with a consumer discretionary in this time and age. Um, I do see some open interest at 865, which would facilitate a move to the downside pretty well. It would actually be a little bit further. And do I see some call buying? I see some volume today at 73 and 75 open interest. It it's higher as well, but it's not quite as like built. I would say it's a little bit more balanced up there. So this one probably is going to stay within its expected move. It might even be able to traverse both sides just because of the range it's in. And that would be because we might hit support and then maybe move back to the middle of the range, which would be, shooting down in price first and then maybe snapping back to the mid range. Um, I did want to look at the, 5-year weekly chart too. You actually have to go back more than 5 years. And just for reference, we've seen some stocks like Disney, maybe Roku, there's a couple of them that kind of come to mind. Moderna. They are capable of hitting the pandemic low, which happens to be just a clean line in the sand for a lot of these larger sell-offs. So if we were to hit that today, it would be a nice place to monitor because you often will just get a reaction because it's such a deep low. And that's something that is hard to observe in the past 6 months. But when you look at the 5-year chart, that is like the cleanest line on this chart. And that sits at about 67. So it's actually within the expected move. And that would put Nike back to where it was on the pandemic low, or at least right when it reacted from it. So yeah, that's not a bullish chart, but there might be some bullish opportunity. So I'm open to both on that one.
Okay.
Nice. That's nice. Good insights, man. All right, guys. So about less than 3 minutes to the close here. Peter, did you find any 1 to 10, or how are we doing?
I was watching Microsoft, and it didn't quite do the bounce that I was looking for. I noticed that in our chat room, David J did manage to take it, the same Microsoft trade, and got the big pop because it did definitely popped, but it took a couple of minutes to react, which is a little unusual, but certainly played out. So, but not for me.
Yeah.
Maybe am I doing it again? Take the damn trade. Anyway, it's all good.
I feel like
Didn't
today,
meet
man,
my criteria.
my day is definitely not complete. When I don't start the pre-market show, I didn't no trades today for me. It's just nothing. Even when I got on with you, it just felt so out of sync, man. I was just not in sync with the market and just couldn't take a trade. Or didn't find anything at least. But you didn't take a trade all day, or how did it go? I heard a little bit of your commentary. It was like you had a rough day or a bad day as far as
No,
execution or taking trades.
yeah, well, it's really just one decision on Apple that I really should have taken that I regret having
Okay,
missed.
okay.
I was watching Apple. I even talked about it live, right? I was sort of doing the setup for it. Made the decision not to take it, but in hindsight, of course, it feels like the wrong decision because if you look at Apple, had a beautiful mountain pass at the high of day, right around 10, just a little bit after 10 o'clock. So you can't miss it there when you find it. So
Yeah,
there
yeah.
it is.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
that's your
sold
move.
off right through it the whole day. So, anyways, easy in hindsight, isn't it? This trading thing, doing it
Yeah.
live, is where for whatever reason I've become much more risk adverse in the last week. So sometimes I find myself slipping into that, and it shows just how it's a constant sort of mental activity, right? You have to stay on top of yourself. You have to make sure that you're managing it. Some people have trouble with euphoria, some with anger, some with apathy. Mine is fear. And if I let the fear set in, then I'm like, I'm not sure about this one. Let me wait for another one, and that's what I just end up sitting here for days waiting for the other one. Now I know there's going
Yep.
to be another one, so at least that's good. But I over rotate on that, so that's something I need to work on.
Yep. All right, guys,
Oh,
here it is. A close coming up. We're looking at
there's the
MU.
bell.
Let's see the reactions, and then Peter's going to come with us with the numbers as soon as we see something here. So, Jerry, remind everybody what the numbers are on this one.
Yeah, so
Ooh,
MU
Micron
is
popping.
looking. Yeah, so MU is looking for about a 9.2 expected move with a lot of open interest at 120. So I
Yeah.
think we're already seeing some potential buying on this. So be curious
Yeah.
if they're driving it up there pretty soon. Nike 5.6 and FedEx 19.5. So call it 20 for FedEx.
Yeah. Then will be nice to see how the others react, the MUs, the AMDs, the other semis, because MU
Sure.
seems to like drive this a little bit. So we've seen it in the past, so should be fun.
Very true.
Whoa,
It's
Micron is just
it's rocking,
it's
man.
all
Look
over
at
the
this
place.
thing. Yeah. To the upside at
Let's see.
least.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
it
looks
just popped all the way back down to almost break even, and then right up like a $4 move in about 10 seconds.
Yeah, it
That's
looks like
pretty
they're
impressive.
holding the price pretty well, so I'm actually long. Trying to see if we can
Okay.
at least get it to the top of the trading range. Top of the trading range is about 110, and then 120 is going to be our pie in the sky objective here.
Nice.
So far so good.
Yeah, we're waiting for the report to come out. Once the numbers, once we have the numbers, Peter's going to read them out to you. But we're waiting for Benzinga to give us the numbers
Micron.
here.
Yeah, here we go. Micron's got their earnings out. Looks like they beat their numbers, both top and bottom line, so delivered a slightly more on the revenue, and $1.56 versus the $1.42 estimate on earnings per share. So that's good. Forecast, like I said, is what everybody's looking for, and they are giving a bullish forecast. Analysts were expecting about 8.48 billion in revenue. They're saying they think they can do about 8.8 plus or minus 200 million. So that puts them over the top of the midpoint of the range, if that makes sense. And then their earnings per share, they're saying that they're going to be delivering $1.57 versus the $1.47 estimate. Again, their estimate is plus or minus 10 cents, which is good because the low end of their estimate matches the analyst expectations, and they can even go higher. So they're saying $1.47 to $1.67, and the analysts were at the low end. So that always makes the markets happy. So let's hope that pushes Jared's trade higher. We're sitting at almost 109 now. So
Yeah.
come on, don't get tired yet. Come on, Micron. It's only gone up
driving.
a couple of bucks, really, but
yeah, so far so good. I am taking profits where I can.
That's good. FedEx on the other side looks like they've dropped down now. This is also a NYSE stock, which means typically you get much lower volumes. I mean, you have to look. This big candle that dropped, there was only 15,000 shares traded in the minute that dropped that candle on FedEx, as opposed to the 2 to 300,000 shares a minute that Micron's trading here. So big difference in volumes between these two stocks. I don't see the numbers on FedEx at this point, but somebody knows something.
MU's gonna. I don't trade earnings, but MU's gonna be very exciting tomorrow, man. Because when they move like this, they'll be in play for a couple of days, and they'll come back to their regular, not so active. And then last time we saw Nvidia also move with it's not moving much. Obviously not gonna move as much as MU, of course, but the sentiment tomorrow, given on their future guidance and their call, will affect some of these.
Right.
MU is starting to get over the more local highs in this range. I'm trying to get it to the top here. The game of, do I take it now or wait later?
Yeah. Are we going to 112 or do you want to take it here at 108.50?
I want it at 120. If it gets to 120, this will seem like such an early exit. So, but I think you need the day, the volume on the day to drive it there. So right now we're just kind of maneuvering it to the right prices, and then we'll see if there's any selling. But so far so good. I see a ton of orders all topside. So as long as we keep buying through them, I don't see any problems. I have 110 pretty heavy on MU. I see 111 starting to grow. So it looks pretty stable.
No, this looks good, and it's holding. You're not getting a big pullback. I see FedEx numbers are out. Peter?
Oh yeah, look at that. I missed that as they were coming out. FedEx numbers looks like they beat on revenue barely. 21.9 was the estimate. 22.2 was the actual, and then on earnings per share, they actually missed by 3 cents. Expectation, like I mentioned, was $4.54. They're delivering $4.51, so just slightly under that. Now, from a forecast, interesting. They say that they're currently, so I guess I understand why they're dropping. FedEx has made a statement that they're unable to provide a 2025 forecast because they've got changes to their effective tax rate and some deep impacts based on their retirement plans and some accounting adjustments they're expecting as a result of presumably sort of rebalancing their retirement commitments. FedEx is one of those companies that they do have a sort of very big pension liability, pension requirements. I think UPS has the same, and it's I thought they were past that. They sort of had reworked all of that, but apparently that's not behind them. So whenever that happens, yeah, that usually doesn't make the market happy when they say they can't figure out what their earnings or their guidance is going to be. That being said, revenue they is not affected by that, and they have forecasted revenue slightly under analysts' expectations. So here goes FedEx dropping a little bit more on that news. Again, keep in mind relatively low volume, however, not unexpected here for FedEx.
Yeah. As I mentioned
Definitely.
before, somewhere around 225, 220 seems about right if it were to keep selling. So there's some suggestion that there's some high volume there from the past. And if we're just moving price down to that area, it's pretty common to get it to those key prices. So if you did take it short, I'm kind of thinking a little bit lower on that one. Not quite a bottom yet.
Here's an oddball, Carlos. It's one of the stocks that we like to follow at the open, but I didn't know that they were reporting here. QUBT, quantum computing. Looks like they reported
Okay.
at 405. It. So they reported at 405. I will then immediately say, but who cares? Like, I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking about a company that has, they had, so keep in mind the relative size of this, right? This is the company that is at a current market valuation of, I got to call it up here. Hold on a sec. Current market valuation of $1 billion, but they were forecasting $200,000 of revenue. Missed it. Only managed to get 62,000. Right? That's like a single day of trading for Andrew. That's what they made all quarter, this company, and they lost a lot more money than expected. They were only expected to lose 5 cents per share. They lost 47 cents per share, so that's quite significant overspending compared to their forecast. But again, is it relevant? Not really, right? As long
Yeah.
as the money behind them doesn't get pulled, we're not tracking this company. We're not valuing this company based on their earnings. In fact,
Yeah.
these types of companies at this point always make me think of sort of that Silicon Valley joke, right? I don't want revenue. As soon as I have revenue, I have to be accountable. No revenue. Just make it all about ideas. So,
The fluffy stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
I mean, this one in QBTS have been getting great volume. They've been great day trading stocks here and there, but yeah, for the most part, same thing with QBTS when they reported. There's nothing there into later in the future, and maybe their forecast will move some stuff. We'll check it out tomorrow.
There you go.
Heading back to
So
MU.
close, Jared.
Yeah, this is
Yeah, so
this is
close.
doing it for you, man. It's holding here. Hit a one. What's the high? 109.90 now.
109.90.
109.90. Yeah, they're teasing me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to pick on you.
So
Yeah,
so for those that
close.
might have just joined on YouTube, we are Jared's long MU here, and he's looking for 110. So it's doing pretty well. They had great earnings, and yeah, they're moving well. Good volume. And tomorrow this is gonna be on fire, man. It's gonna be the first one on my list. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
I think even over the course of the next couple hours, they could easily continue this move. And by the time we open, we could be over all this area. So that's
Ooh,
usually,
Are you gonna hold it overnight?
I don't know, that's a lot of time to
Mhm.
stay in a trade
Yeah, I
without
know.
a stop loss. So,
Yeah.
I agree.
And on top of that too, it's just all the uncertainty, right? Like a change in any type of direction from either politics or whatever economy, it could be rough, man. It's tough. It's a tough market to swing trade, I gotta say. But manage your risk. You're in a good spot. I got a nice cushion right now. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah. I'm usually
So
thinking like, what time is the conference call? And then
yeah,
if the conference
Right.
call can make it move through these prices, that's usually a really good sign. But
yeah,
right now, you can almost feel there's a hesitation to buy through because you almost need, full court press kind of buying to get through this type of resistance.
yeah.
So
And it's such a obviously tech heavy company. They're gonna want to know. Okay, that's great. What does the plans look like? They want to look for. Okay, what are you doing for AI? What are you doing for this? What are you doing for that? That's also pretty interesting with these tech companies. What the future looks like. What are you working on? What chips you're coming out with?
Yep.
All that fun stuff. Are you behind? Like Nvidia, I know Nvidia was like a year and a half, Peter and Jared, behind on production of one of their chips. So if you order it now, you got to wait a year and a half. I mean, that's insane. To have to wait that long. So obviously not good.
Yeah, well, it's those types of chips are not the ones that we're ordering to power our trading rigs here.
No. A fraction, very very small fraction of that.
Yeah.
The show does not run on any of that stuff. That's for sure. So Nike's 9 till 5. We're not going to wait for Nike. It's pretty far out.
I thought it was at 4:15. I think it's.
I heard 5, but let's confirm. I heard for 5 from Brian, who's not here with us today. So he
Okay. I know he said
he can't
that,
confirm.
I'm calling bluff on that. Hold on a sec.
All right, let's do it. Peter's gonna make some checks here on Nike's reports.
There it is. Yeah, I see 4:15. Well, we'll find out in 2 minutes.
Okay, we'll wait.
No,
We'll wait
3
for
minutes.
15.
3
See
minutes.
if we got something on Nike. Let's see
Again,
what's going on there.
not expecting much excitement, even if it does come out at 4:15. So really, we may be waiting for nothing.
Yeah. You know what? They might not get the volume, but like you mentioned before, I fully agree with you. Their gaps up and down for some reason seem to be big every time.
Right.
Nothing's happening, we're gapping down. This is happening, we're gapping up, So it'll be interesting to see what they report and how they react to it. So, and I remember the big gap down was when Foot Locker, like this Foot Locker reported something. I forgot what it was. You guys remember this?
Yeah.
This was
Yeah.
big, man. It was massive. And they recovered quite a bit, but right back to this area where it's just continue finding some kind of support.
Yeah. That trading range is almost as long as a MU's trading range. It's just very low in price, and
Yeah.
I think the only thing left is the pandemic lows. So there's not many more
Yeah,
targets to the
can't go below.
downside.
Yeah. You go below the pandemic low, you're in trouble, man. Something
that's a
is
big problem.
seriously wrong.
Exactly. There's only so many stocks that have done that so far.
Yeah.
That being said, I got to give a shout out to Nike because I'm using the Nike Run app to help me train for my marathon, and with 7 weeks to go, it's got a little guided tour for me. It's showing me what I need to do each time and the runs that I've done this week, and it keeps going. So I got to say, it's a free app. It's great if you're a runner or an aspiring runner. Check it out. I'm actually quite impressed with it. You can get sort of coached guiding, to talk you through your runs. Keeps my mind busy while I'm just running in circles around the neighborhood here.
They got some pretty good stuff. So they got that podcast too. I forget the Performance Nike podcast, which is actually pretty nice. Not just for if you're an athlete or train for something, just overall like mindset and business is
Right.
pretty cool. And a lot of stuff there, because obviously it's based on performance. Also can apply to trading, right? Like every time I hear something like, okay, how can that apply to trading? And a lot of it, can relate to it. So if you're
There
looking
goes
for
Nike.
podcasts, definitely check it out. Oh, Peter, you was right. Nike making a move.
That's coming off of
Yeah,
the
that's
range
good.
support, actually. That's where that came from. So that range on the daily chart just reacted there.
Yeah. All right, we can no longer trust Brian with telling us what time stuff reports. He's banned.
So this one's a
Everybody's
little
liable to make a mistake or two.
This one's a little deceptive, actually, because you'll notice they're selling it already. That's actually the middle of the trading range trying to sell, and I'm curious if they're actually rejecting here. This could actually turn around on us if these buyers don't hold up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming
Not looking
all
good.
the way back down. Yeah,
Ooh,
it's
there
turning.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yep,
swinging the other way.
quite a big range, but 5.6 expected move. We actually popped right to it. So the only upside I saw was the middle of that trading range, which I think VPOC was maybe 76.
Hmm.
Let's see, could pull that up. Volume pro 77. So, the biggest node of volume in this trading range sits at 77. So they actually just moved it there
All right.
and sold it, you know.
Uh, Numbers are out. Yeah, Nike looks like they delivered 11.27 billion in revenue versus an $11 billion estimate. Earnings per share 54 cents versus an expected 28 cents. So that's actually pretty good. That's actually a pretty big beat for Nike to do almost double what they said they were going to do in an earnings per share. So I don't see their forecast information yet, but I noticed that they've looks like they're maybe going back up here. I'll
Maybe
let you
back
know
to
when we get any guidance.
maybe back to 75, but I still see a lot more selling going on, so be curious what happens once they move up here.
Mm. Your Micron's just holding pretty flat here, isn't it?
Yeah, I haven't had to manage it, which is good and bad. I
Yeah,
prefer to just hit my target and be done.
of course.
But yeah, it's making a bull flaggish hold up here. I'm curious if it's gonna pull back a little deeper. There's some
Uh,
bid forming, but I don't think it's gonna be too bad to the downside before we get to 110. Yeah, Nike's interesting. I think if I was closer to that spike high, I probably would have tried shorting it. Um,
yeah, it
Mostly
wasn't up there
because of
for
the
very
range.
long.
Exactly. It was pretty fast, but those moves like that tend to reject pretty often just because you're trading underneath value. You hit it and then you immediately see a reaction. I'm really curious though if they break the support, that'd be significant.
Mm.
Hmm.
Well, FedEx is sort of dead, I think, for the night. Seems to be gone quiet.
But noticing a lot less volume in the markets these days, and it's starting to come across in the earnings too. It's just not as much
Mm.
participation at certain times. We're getting plenty of volatility, but the volumes are pretty low.
Right.
So
And I guess that makes sense to me to a certain degree, right? With the relative uncertainty and the sort of in the economy and the politics surrounding it, you're going to find pockets of money that are saying, you know what, I think we'll either go to other markets or sit on the sidelines and wait it out.
yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
100%. I mean, you wake up in the morning and I'm like, are these guys not sleeping? There's like 20 headlines of Trump did this or Putin did that or Ukraine did this. Like, are you guys not sleeping? Like, I'll get Ukraine and Russia, but the U.S., man, it's just like 20 different brand new headlines. I'm like, when did this happen? Like, go to bed, man. Let us sleep and wake up fresh and do things. You don't know what you can run into in the morning that could really affect things. Next thing you know, you're gapping down the wrong direction. So it makes sense to see that. So that's well said, Jared. A lot of volatility, but not as much volume. Makes
Yeah,
perfect sense, and we're seeing that even throughout the day sometime here as we're trading. All right, guys.
it
I think we could start wrapping it up. You go ahead, Jared.
yeah, it really just makes the moves bigger. And
Yeah.
I think Peter kind of mentioned that like our volatility is high because of the size of the moves, but it doesn't always mean a big range doesn't mean that there's a ton of volume traded. It's just that the
Yeah.
price moved a lot bigger than average. So we're kind of getting ramifications of that at certain times. And I mean, I, I say that these volumes are low. I'm really not sure about FedEx. MU is trading pretty decent volume. And then maybe Nike will start trading higher, but these are very thin moves, I would say. Most of the action is coming probably in like the morning burst, and then
Mhm.
everything just drops off, even into the afternoon, I find.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless we have FOMC or something, something that's moving the market, but it's not as good as it used to be.
Right, right. Nike will get the volume tomorrow. We'll just have to see if it can trade well. It'll be on my list as well because I like Nike, but I gotta say I don't like the price action as much as many other stocks. So, but it will be on my list as long alongside MU, and we'll see. We'll see what we can get out of it. All right, friends, we'll wrap it up here. Again, these stocks, I want to see MU in a couple hours, Jared, to see to see how that's looking because this has the potential, man. If anyone can keep going higher here, it's MU, and the fact that it's holding here is pretty nice. So hopefully you
Yeah,
can get to your target.
this pullback that just happened looks good. I mean, if
Yeah,
I can kind of solidify these pullback lows, I think 110 is next. It's gonna take some time.
yeah. What is your
Uh,
call? Do you know it? Do you have?
that's a great question. Let's see if I can figure that
That
out
can
on my
give you
platform.
the push that you need.
It says 3:30, so 4:30 market time. It might be in the next 8 minutes, so
Okay,
we
okay.
might be able to see it pretty soon.
Yeah, nice, man.
All right, fingers and toes crossed for you then.
All right, very good.
Appreciate it.
Peter, good luck on your P Capital meeting, guys. If you want to learn more about P Capital,
Thank you.
you can check pcapitaltraining.com. Peter's about to go do his mentorship every Thursday. You do your mentorship with them, so that's awesome. All right, guys. Take care. Have a great evening, and we'll see you guys in the morning. Should be fun. MU, FedEx, and Nike tomorrow morning. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Peter, for joining us today.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks,
All right,
Carlos.
have a good one.
Thanks,
See
Peter.
ya.
Later.